Alright guys, teaching you how to roll out the coils and make your Greek coil project. So you should have drawn your life-size image, and then when you fold it in half you should have a line of symmetry. You can use one of these. You don't need a full folder, just cut it in half. If you fold it in half along the line of symmetry, you can then use this paper or this folder to trace just half of your image, or you may have to cut this out and put it on top of this. That makes sense, to show the line of where you need to build your coils. So this would be made up by coil and coil and coil and coil. Angling the coils out, angling the coils up, and angling the coils in. You want to take into consideration the size of the base. The base of this one would be pretty small, so I actually had to taper it and make it bigger, because this one is 1 inch for the radius, so the diameter would be 2 inches, but that's pretty small considering how wide the overall opening would be. And then it's not very stable unless you add a decorative foot on the bottom. So keep that in mind. When you're building these, you can use this template. You don't have to, but it helps to act as a guide. If we had more time, I would show you guys how to also measure out the circumference of the shoulder and the mouth and the neck, so you have an idea of how large your largest coil will be. So if you have really sticky clay, I would roll your coil out on the bat. Remember that when you're rolling the coils, that you squeeze them in the shape that you need them to be before you start rolling, and allow the coil to roll on its own instead of just going back and forth in the same area. Your goal with this is to have about the same thickness all the way across. If it's to the point to where it's not sticking and it's drying out a little bit, I would roll it directly on the table. Otherwise, you're going to dry your coils out way too much. If you're making a tiny project, which that was for miniature to just test things out, you have pretty small coils. Otherwise, you are making them a little bit bigger, probably no bigger than the circumference of a dime. If it's getting toward a nickel, I would make it just a little bit smaller. If you make them too big, you're not going to be able to get all the angles of what you're wanting. Let's see. So I like to go ahead and halfway flatten this coil and then flip it over. If you press it too hard into the table, it will stick, which is not what you want. I got a little bit thin there. So I have a choice where I can cut this because it's too thin right in those areas, and then I can merge those together because I don't really want to have inconsistencies, or when I'm building my project it loses some of its symmetry, so I can blend that together because it's pretty soft. So I can then set this up right. Remember, you have to score. So I'm using the serrated kidney because it has the little teeth on it. Score anywhere where you're going to connect two things together, and then we'll slip. But I don't have the base of this made, so let me pause and show you that. Okay, when making the base, you can flatten it out by hand, you can flatten it out by the rolling pin. It doesn't need to be too thick, you just want to make sure that it's consistent. So I started out with a ball of clay and then I'm flattening it some. Whatever method that you want to use to make it as consistent all the way across. Then I'm using a banding wheel and I am putting this on top of it, spinning it around. My base, I'm going to make, say I'm making an amphora. I would use a pencil, and notice how I kept it still. Then I am going to cut that out using the serrated kidney. I think Hamilton the hamster must have come back, and he is in my room eating snacks.
Alright.
You're a rat.
She's a stank one.
Okay. So here is the base I'm using. You can build up your project on a banding wheel if you want, or directly on the table on your bat, scoring the base with a serrated kidney. You can either use pre-made slip, or you can use water, toothbrush, or something else to get this to dampen. You're connecting. My first coil that I'm making is going upright. So I'm not tilting the angle at all, because it's just straight up. Then where it overlaps, slice it. Slice it a little bit more, and connecting it together. This is where the more consistent that your coils are going around, the more even the height will be as you go across. So the next coil that I've made is not long enough to go around this. So I have two options. I can either make another piece that I can patch in there, or make a completely new coil that's long enough. For this one, because I want it to get wider, whenever I connect it, I am angling this out. So see how I am pressing outward on these coils, because that will make the shape get wider as it goes up toward the body, and then I will start to curve it back in. When you're making the project, it's a good idea to make several coils that you can use to add on pretty closely, and check the thickness. Whenever you hold it upright, you want to make sure that you've paddled it out, flattened it to where it's relatively the same too. I also, whenever I'm connecting them, like to come through with a serrated kidney and score those pieces together going around, and then I can smooth it out with the wood modeling tool or my finger or the flat side of this. So if the clay is pretty soft, you have to be careful that you'll really distort the shape. So then you're smoothing it together, and then on the inside, if you have luxurious nails, you can use your own nails. Otherwise, you can use a tool like this. Though guys, look, since my fingers haven't been in clay, I have been able to grow them out. Also, COVID has me freaked out, so I'm trying not to pick at them or bite them. Yay, about time for me to stop biting my nails right before I turn 40. My birthday is February 9th. And what I would like for my birthday is for every student to finish their Greek coil project. I do.
I'd like to go skiing.
And I do want to go skiing.
And she would like for us to clean up, which I'm never doing.
Yeah, I do like it when people clean up.
Archery.
Yeah, archery is pretty bomb too. All solid choices, guys. Okay, I got this one. Ready for my next layers, so I'm scoring. And then I'm scoring the top of this. My kids are in the background making you guys some delicious clay pizza. Maybe we'll leave a mess for first hour to clean up. That'll be fun. I'm sure Carter doesn't clean up enough for people at work, so he could also clean up after my kids. So this next layer, I want it to get wider because my template goes wider. And if I follow this guide, I really need to make it expand out. So I'm connecting it. If your coil is too dry, it's going to crack when you do this. So you have to be Make sure that it's pretty plastic. And how do you make it more plastic?
You say,
that's not the right answer. You add water.
And salt.
No, salt's not a good idea. Listen to that 8-year-old. And you can also use water and press against it to help it angle outward. The inside does not have to be as smooth and as connected as the outside if you're not going to see the inside of something. So if you're making a crater or the calyx or the cantharos, then you'll want to make sure you get the inside smooth pretty well, because obviously you'll be able to see it. But if you're making the aribalos, the amphora, the olpe, the Ocho, remember that one? Or the Laquithos, then you will want to smooth out only the outside, really, is the emphasis. So I'm going through, you probably can't see this very well.
Just the outside, guys.
But I am smoothing the outside of this. Great narrator in the background. Alright, second one. Score the top part of my coil where I'm going to connect it. Add slip. Next one needs to angle out again. So notice how I'm connecting it together so it's overlapping right on top of each other. But then I'm angling the top part out. Cut where it overlaps. So again, the bottom part matches it exactly. It's the top part that I'm angling out. And you don't have to stop and connect every single coil really well, but I would try to get those connected together before the end of the class period or wrap it up super well. Otherwise, it might dry out. Now these two pieces, I hope if I blend them together, they'll be long enough to attach.
Scarlet. Oh, there it is. Never mind.
Alright, it's already scored. Score the top of this.
Score 0.
Score is 1 mom, 0 kids.
She doesn't know what she's talking
I'm
about.
always winning. Always a winner. Uh-oh.
No, you're not.
Look at that. It's perfect. Dang, I'm so good. I'm so good. Even with COVID, I'm good. Even with COVID, I'm good, folks.
She's not.
Check
She's
it.
just saying that, but it actually will get worse.
What's going to get worse?
You'll see it. You'll be like screaming like a screaming goat. Doesn't know.
No, I wouldn't have to scream if you didn't act like a wackadoo. Fact.
What's mom?
I've only screamed at school 1 time this year so far. There's still a few more months left though. There's potential. All right, so can you guys see how it's getting wider? Then if I check my template and see how I'm working against that guide, based on the 6 to 9 inches, I still have another one that I probably go out, but I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller just for the sake of the demo. There's a beautiful guide hand. Oh my gosh, I got 3 hands, and my 3rd hand's really tiny. Gotta go out 1 more time.
Okay. Like you said, just need to cut it.
So, big key to all this is making good coils and making them consistent. If you don't have consistency in your coils, you will not have a very good project. It'll be lopsided and asymmetrical. And then you have to do more surgery on it afterwards. So every once in a while I like to look at it from the side view and check to see how it's building. Pause it and show you guys that too. Okay, here's a side view, which whenever it starts to harden, you paddle it and shape it. But this kind of shows how it's angling outward, how the coils will be blended together, what it looks like from the inside, and then how you can use the template as a guide. And then notice how I have to continue going out. I can push it out just a little bit more and then going up and in. So here's the overall project. No, I am. Alright. So just to show you guys how I'm scoring the outside of this to help merge that clay together where it connects, because then I can go through and smooth it kind of like you're frosting a cake with that softness. So remember to paddle your coils halfway. If you have a lot of debris on your table, you want to clean that off, or you're just going to smash it into your coil. The more consistent you can keep these coils, the better your project will be. There's second and the third. I don't think I even showed you any of that. So whenever I added this one in, I had it join on top and then I started pressing it inward so that the angle is getting small. So if you can see this one, I started to angle out and then I went up, so this one's just vertical, and then I'm starting to taper in, and this matches, somewhat matches this. I could still kind of press it out and make it match the shape a little bit more. So you can see the next coil needs to go in quite a bit. Right, so again, still tapering it in quite a bit. And this clay is super plastic, which is kind of difficult to help it maintain shape. It wants to kind of collapse on itself. But I wanted you guys to see how you make that go in. So it's getting smaller, and then if I had time and the clay wasn't this sticky, then I would make it go in and back out. I will show you how to make a spout, so maybe I can make this go in just a little bit more, but I won't be able to smooth everything because it is way too sticky, way too plastic. So right, going in again, making it smaller, narrower. We have the shoulder. Now we're tapering in toward the neck. Hamster's really getting after it in that art closet. I'm kind of pinching it to thin it out a little bit too. Really trying to get this to go in narrow. Trying to keep that symmetry as best as I can. Checking from the side angle as well. You can press on the inside and use the serrated kidney to scratch together where you're connecting the coil pieces. You really have to make sure you get these connected well. Otherwise, when they dry, they will just pop apart. And that's the sort of popping off you don't want. Am I right, Mary, or am I right? Mary knows what pops off.
That's getting annoying when I say, let's do, and it's okay. Dad gets annoyed by that, Mom.
When you say what?
Let's do, and it's okay. Really fun.
I wanted you guys to see how I really scratched this up so that I know that the coils are connected really well, and then I can use this wood modeling tool to smooth it out, kind of like frosting, like it's icing. You can use a little bit of water too. Do not paint it with slip. That's not going to help. Okay, I've tried smoothing it. Part of the struggle is I'm doing this all in one sitting, and so the clay is very, very squishy and plastic, needs to be harder. What I would do if it wasn't so sticky was I would hold the inside and I would paddle it with a wooden spoon to help shape it. And I would do that while I could still get my hand in there quite a bit. It's difficult to do that now because it's getting pretty narrow. So this one's going to be a little wonky and jankety because I'm doing this all in one setting. But I'm going to go ahead and make it taper in to get smaller and come back out and show you how to make the spout, and then we'll be done. Oh, plus handles. Okay, I went in and dried it a little bit. I don't know how you can see this, but I want to be able to paddle by pressing out with the inside of my hand and using the soft side of the spoon to get the clay to compress. And if you paddle without pressing on the inside of the clay, you may end up distorting the shape a little bit more because you're just banging against itself instead of having pressure that's on the inside of it, which this is a little difficult to do because the opening is so narrow at the top of this, and I had to dry it with a heat gun, which kind of compromises the natural drying capability of this. But the clay that's in the bag is very, very sticky. So before you really build with it and make coils, I would suggest try to wedge out some of that extra dampness. So this starts to smooth it. If you start developing cracks, that means it's drying out a little too much, which is not good. This one's getting cracks because I just used the heat gun to try to turbo heat it. But hopefully you can kind of see how, I don't know if you can see anything that I just did. Oh, there's no good angle for this. Oh, there's no good angle for this. This is the most fun part. So if you do it with the wrong side of the spoon, you're just going to whack a bunch of grooves into it. You see how that's starting to compress it, and then I can still work forming, smoothing, shaping it, trying to keep it symmetrical while it's soft. Or you can come in with a little bit of water. Please don't just rub slip all over it, but you can kind of press that to get that to form too. And the benefit of using the banding wheel is you can check to make sure that you're kind of compressing it symmetrical on the left and the right side. Make sure you flip your project upside down at some point and really make sure that the base is secure. You don't want that to just pop off of there either. And smooth and compress everything. You can also use the flat side of the serrated kidney or the wooden potter's rib, and you can scrape the sides to really try to work some of those grooves and divots out. And that will help. Remember, you need to keep your project at least leather hard, so you can either add this graffito design going around or subtractive or additive methods. The graffito loop tools are up here. The brushes are up here. And this graffito slip is down here. There's several of them. Remember, you have to mix up the slip before you use it. Okay, let's see. I need to go in again to make this a pretty narrow neck. Already scored this. Add slip. If it's difficult for you to make it get really narrow, then you may have to make a shorter coil. And notice how I'm really angling this in. And the clay's pretty plastic for this. If you try to do this with a coil that's dried out, you are going to just crack it and break, and it's not going to work very well. And I'm going through and pinching. Make sure it's all the same consistency. Then I'm scoring to blend that clay together. Remember that if you try to add damp clay to something that's already dried out, it's not going to stick very well. Most likely it will fall off, or it will crack and break, or it won't make it through the firing. So you have to try to keep the same clay plasticity as possible. And going back through with some water.
Why don't you flip his hand?
I have nothing to do with those color pencils, sis. There's a pencil sharpener over there.
Wait, where?
By Jet's face. Over there. Where it says, be savage, not average. On the sign that Papa gave me.
Oh, B7, not. Wait. Not right.
It's our family motto. Now I'm ready to start adding the neck and then the lip. So I can make this one vertical. Again, slice it where it's too big. If I don't want it to be thicker there, I can make it a little bit smaller. I can pinch around to try to make sure I have that as consistent as possible with the thinness. This is where you want to make sure that it connects pretty well. So you can use this wood modeling tool or any tool to try to get that clay to smooth together on the inside. And you may have to use a decent amount of water to get that to connect too. And then getting that outside ring of the neck to join together. We're almost done, guys.
Popcorn guy.
And some more water. Get that smooth together. Alright, now I'm ready to make a wider opening.
Mom, what are you making, a vase?
I am, a Greek vase.
What?
A Greek vase.
A green?
Greek.
What does that mean?
It's based on a style of pottery made by ancient people who lived in Greece. Now notice how I'm getting this one to flare back out.
What does ancient mean?
A long time ago. Then I'll connect this together, and then I'll show you how to pull a spout. Come over here. Okay, so here's the top of the vase. But I'm going to show you how to pull a spout. You don't want to pull the spout from wherever you connected the two pieces together, which you can see in mine there. I'm going to find whatever's more of a higher spot, and then I'll show you how to do it. Okay, here, stand right here. You stand right here? Okay, hold this. Just like that. Right there. Okay, so I am getting my fingers damp with water, and I see that it's pretty tall right here. So I am getting this wet because you want it to stay pretty plastic. And I am holding this piece in with my fingers, and then I'm kind of pushing this out. I have to be careful because it's a little bit thin right there and it will crack otherwise. But as long as you keep it pretty wet, remember you can make it plastic and you can manipulate it pretty well by sliding this down. So this is kind of what it looks like from the side. And then I'm smoothing these pieces a little bit. Smooth this. I'm a videographer working from all angles here. And then just going around the back, if I want to taper this out, I can. And if I wanted to make it something decorative, I could even trim the sides a little bit. But then I'll be adding the handle, and we'll call it good because my kids are losing their...
Are you done?
Now I need to work on the handle. So I have rolled out a coil that goes wider to smaller. I use my thumb to press grooves and indentations, and then I need to see where I want to connect it. and how much of an arch I want. If I want it to go straight, this should be based on your picture, or if it goes taller, just really how decorative I really want that to be. Cutting this at a side angle. Remember, you have to score when you are connecting the handle. You want it, if it has a lip or anything, you want to use a pencil or something to make sure that you're connecting it exactly in the back point. And then I'm going to have it go from here to here. Some score, add some slip, and then I want this to be a pretty high decorative handle.
Stop, Scarlett.
And then I'll work on connecting that, and I'll cut the excess off. And then that will be it for the handle. Yeah, you can hit stop. Alright, so that's it. Next up, I would add a band of sgraffito slip around it. And then I can work on the design, and maybe Miss Kennedy would like to do that. Okay, stop. So notice how the top of the handle and the bottom of the handle need to be in line with each other. All right, Hayes, you want to say anything?
No.
I would.
That's Hayes. This is Scarlett.
Your mom.
I'm their
And I got
mom.
an update to geometry.